Alright, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna model whatever the next thing I have in my list is. I have no idea. I'm just picking... Apparently we're gonna do the mug. We're gonna do scissors now. Huzzah, I have scissors. Okay, so what I'm gonna do for these is I'm gonna start and I'm gonna decide that this little nub is gonna be my center point. I'm going to just make a random cylinder and I am going to center that on the origin. I'm recording. Huzzah. Alright, so I am then going to just move this and scale it to fit the picture because I have zero idea what scale this is, and I'd rather my model be bigger than smaller because sometimes like tiny units in Maya are really annoying. Alright, so move that into place, centered around there, and now we can begin with the actual interesting parts of this. I'm going to start with the blade. I'm going to start with a plane, which might seem a little counterintuitive, but I'm a weird person and I model in weird ways, so what the heck. Alrighty then, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these vertices, and I was trying to get the scissor blade kind of straight, because I think it makes life a little easier. But who really knows? Alright, so I'm gonna grab this, and I'm gonna focus on the part of this that is not beveled for now. I'm gonna line that up, and this is just gonna clip right on through, eventually, through that blade. Alright, so what I'm now going to do is I'm going to extrude this and just drag that up. And I'm lining it up with this piece because it's going to need a little bit less work. I'm just hitting G to repeat my last command, which was extrude. It's always extrude because extrude is the best. I'm a little spazzy right now, apparently. Alright, I'm going to insert another edge loop in there just so I can get that, Ooh, I did a bad thing. I'll revisit that in a second, but I, apparently didn't extrude without moving it first. And I'm gonna make my edge planes not visible because I hate them. Okay, so I have a weird floating face in here because apparently I didn't extrude and didn't move it. So what you can do is just marquee select over this face and just delete it and it'll get rid of that and now you're good to go. Alright, so I'm gonna grab things like a little sensitive about selecting the object mode sometimes. Alright, so what I'm gonna do now is grab this edge, and I'm gonna just merge that to center, so it's gonna give me a little try, and I'm just gonna be like, blah, try. Ooh. I don't hate tries as much as some people hate tries. Anywho. I have scissors. Beautiful. Alright, what I'm gonna do now is block out the area for this little curvy bit. So I'm just gonna extrude that out, kind of scale that in a semi-arbitrary fashion. It's not semi-arbitrary, but I'm gonna scale that and just rotate that. So that I have a nice flat piece on this blade, and then I'm going to extrude this up and do another merge to center. So what I should have is edge loops relatively following the contours of this delightful blade, which honestly at this particular moment is probably not the most important thing ever. Append Polygon to make a weird little try there. However, if you're smoothing this model, this kind of thing becomes very important, especially for blades, and I know because I make a lot of cosplay blades, and they're very annoying. The blades are the worst part. Anywho. Alright, so I have this lovely, weird, flat, partial blade. What I'm going to do here is save this scene. And the... Ooh, cat fight. Never mind on the cat fight? I don't know. Our cats are crazy. Alright, so the blades are easily the worst part of this to model, so what we're going to do, the back of this should be totally flat. This part just needs to come out and sort of extend a little bit. What I'm going to do is extrude this object. Really? What are you doing? I have this. Okay, that was weird. I don't know what my computer's doing right now. So I'm just gonna like extrude this a teeny bit, and then I'm gonna deselect the edge of the scissors and just extrude this, pull this up more, and that'll give you that like weird taper to the blade that it sort of has. And I'm gonna say for the time being, like that's probably close enough. What I could and should do if this was something I was like gonna 3D print, I would probably like, you know, add a little bit more taper into that. But now you have a little blade, and if you smooth it, you know, you can kind of see it's like blade-like. Depending, you could also like make that like actually, depends. You can do a lot of things with this. Anyway, what I'm gonna do is look at this from the side view because I thought it was off center, but it seems fine. I'm gonna duplicate this, and I'm going to scale this on the -1 z-axis. Try random things if you can't figure out what to scale it on, and one, like, it'll... make sure you're freezing transformations if you do this, you don't want negative scales. But it will you know, you can always undo it if you grab the wrong axis. Has been my life philosophy, and just sort of rotate that till it, I don't know, kind of matches. Strictly speaking, both of these blades are different. So, you know, if I wanted to get, like, really picky about this particular one, I would probably, like, take this and, like, move this up more, and then, you know, rotate it so it matched a little bit better. But for now, I'm just gonna say, whatever, close enough. Now we have our delightful two blades. Let's go and start on the actual handle bits. And I think for these, I'm going to start with... I have a weird... I don't know. Most people would probably start from a Taurus. I'm a crazy person, and I'm gonna start... Actually, no, this is rational. I was having a decision. I'm just gonna start with plain, because I'm super eccentric. And I'm just gonna make the actually, okay. Here's a weird thing you could do. So you could do the same thing I did with the ukulele, where you sort of like start with a plane, build it out, delete the holes for the center, and that's the hole of the scissor is the hole of the ukulele. Or for this very weirdly shaped one, we could do mesh tools, create polygon. And I don't normally recommend using this, especially if you are not familiar with Maya, because this basically just creates a giant n-gon for you. However, we don't need the n-gon for this. We need the shape of the n-gon. So take the edge of this and just extrude it out. And so, like, again, giant n-gon. Just awful. Terrible thing. Delete it. And now you have a perfect shape that is the shape of your scissors. I could probably use some more loops on the bottom, but whatever. And then I'm going to go ahead and just extrude that out again, and this seems to be doing a pretty nice job for the gray area. Definitely could use some more loops there, so I'm just going to go in, like, mesh tool, hold shift, and that'll pop those in. And... Alright, so now I'm going to go and take... Oops. First insert edge loop tool. Never lets you go. So then I'm just going to kind of, like, you know, tweak some of the shapes of this and... take this edge, and remember, this is still all a plane at this point, so I mean, this is just a flat thing, which I like working with flat planes. I think it's easy to deal with, but again, there's 8 different ways you could do this. You could start from, like, a proper 3D shape, doesn't really matter. So, alright, so we have our goofy little plane. What I'm gonna do is just extrude this, and just push this back, and just fudge this to get it centered. Alright, so this is kind of sad. It's very, very flat. So what I'm going to do is take this inner part, add a little bit of taper just by scaling that in slightly, and then with my insert edge loop tool, I'm going to come in and I'm going to shift click and just add another loop, and that'll make it a little bit rounder. And I think what I'm going to do is, good lord. Again, shift-click here because I want a little bit more roundedness, and then just to define where that orange is, I'm going to add an edge loop really close to that, and just, like, actually, oops, what am I doing? I'm going to add, like, 2 edge loops here, and this is just defining the border of the orange a little bit more visually, so I'm just going to kind of, like, squish that in. And now you have pretty much, like, the wonky shape of these scissors, or, like, this one handle. So again, if we want to do this again, I'll do it the same way. I'm going to come up, new mesh, create polygon. This one would actually be very, you know what, I'm going to, yeah, I'll start this one from a cylinder. What the heck? I'll do something slightly more rational. Okay. So I'm going to grab just vertex mode and hit B to turn on soft select. This is going to allow me to drag parts of my model, and I'm pressing and holding B and middle mouse button clicking to expand the radius of this, but it's basically like selecting multiple points at the same time. And then, like, this one I'll probably drag over here and, like, maybe scale that. Maybe not with the scaling. I'll just press B to turn off soft select and just manually rejigger this. I thought the other one was a little easier to do, because it was, like, pretty much just like a bean shape, which is like a little, there's nothing, this is mostly circular. It's a little easier to start from a circle. So since this was a cylinder, we do have the sides. So this is not a plane, but we are still able to scale out and thicken this in the same way that we would have the other end of this. And ideally, you know, I would, you know, mess with the contours of this since this is a demo object. Meh. Which is, I don't know, probably lazy of me, but whatever. Alright, so I'm gonna do the same thing, except now we have an extra edge loop to deal with, which is like mildly annoying, but not the worst thing ever. So I'm just gonna kind of squish that in, and just kind of make that as flat as possible for now. Again, I could be more careful with this, but kind of doesn't super matter. And this is still very clearly a pair of scissors. Alright, so you do want to make sure that stuff kind of lines up like the way it should, where they're, you know, roughly the same height at least. You would also want to finish the back of this if this was like a real model. Alright, so I'm going to do the same thing I did before, which is basically just take these inner bits and scale these together. Go into my insert edge loop tool, shift click to add a little roundness there, shift click to add roundness here, and then add in some more little loops. And then just take that middle one and just sort of loop it back in there so that you have that more rounded section. Now, I don't know how, I'm curious how this looks smooth. Probably terrible. Like, these look great smooth. This is a great thing to smooth. Looks more or less great. But anywho. Alright, so this is clearly has, like, gone a little bit off reference. So I'm just gonna push these over a little bit and sort of change the shape again. You know, it would be better to do this earlier on, but for now, bleh. My goal basically just being, I want this little nub thing in here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to insert an edge loop in here and in here. And then grab, I'm going to control 1 to isolate select, but I'm just going to grab, I think it was like these little faces, and just extrude those and scale them down. And that will give me, you know, close enough to that little nub. I can, you know, scale those flat, rotate them a little bit so it kind of matches up a little better. But that is more or less how you model scissors, and the nice thing about this, get into parenting and stuff a little bit more, but if you parent this, each blade to the respective handle, and you adjust the question mark. Cool. Ah, yes, okay. And you adjust the pivots of each of these so that they match up with the center of this, what you should be able to do is, and again, this is not, that was quick demos, but you can basically articulate this like real scissors, which is fun. And that's the beauty of modeling things, you know, correctly, because you can do stuff like that. So, anywho, scissors.